Hello and welcome to another episode of Analyzing Startups from a Product Perspective. This time we're going to do something a bit different. We're not going to analyze a startup, we're going to analyze a new market filled with new startups, and we're going to see how different startups approach this new market. So the market in question is meetings. How do we make meetings more productive? Basically, we're seeing a lot of new startups popping up and they're trying to make meetings more effective. Now, meetings were never especially popular with people. Usually, people don't really like meetings. They say they want less meetings. It's kind of a necessary evil. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these new startups try to improve on it and to basically offer a new experience. Okay, so if we go around the market, we basically see that all of these new startups, the thing they have in common is a specific set of feature. They all integrate with your video conference software, so it can be Zoom or Google Meet, and they basically have access to your meetings through there. Then they take these meetings and they transcribe them, right? They turn them into text. And in some way or another, they're trying to use these capabilities to make your meetings more effective. And we're going to see how in just a second. So here are all kinds of companies. These are just a few examples of companies that have these characteristics, right? They're integrating to your video conferences, they're transcribing the meeting into text, and they're trying to make you more effective. If we're going to try to understand how did this market even come about, what are the origins of this market, so to speak, we can see something kind of interesting. So let's take these companies and look at the year they were founded in. So what we can see is that we have one group of startups that was founded around 2016, 2017, and then we have another group of startups that was founded around 2020, 2022. That I think is not by accident, and it actually reflects pretty well as to the underlying market trends that enabled this market to be created. So the first market trend that we're going to talk about is the improvement in speech-to-text technology. So what we can see in this graph is that over time, and especially in the years 2016, 2017, there was a very major improvement in the accuracy of speech-to-text, and it actually reached a level that is not too different from what a human transcribers would have. Okay, so we have this tech enabler that basically the technology changed. There was like a huge jump in quality of the technology that is available in the market. But we also had a behavioral change. So this graph might not surprise you. Basically, in the beginning of 2020, there's a huge spike in usage of the Zoom app. And as you can probably imagine, this is due to the pandemic and people starting to work remotely more and more. So we have two things here, right? We have a tech enabler. Basically, the technology vastly improved and people's behavior also changed. And when you have two of these together, that's basically enough of a change that will create a new market for you and will attract new startups to try to solve new problems that we just didn't have before. Now, you might look at these two enablers to market trends, and you can, like many startups, be very excited about them because they create tons of opportunities. One thing to remember, though, is that with these opportunities, we also have huge amount of risk. Right? So if we have a change in the way people behave, that's going to mean that there's like tons of unknowns, tons of things we really don't know how exactly people are doing it, what exactly is important to them, because no one really did that before, and it creates new problems to solve. But also it means there's just so many unanswered questions. And because there are so many unanswered questions, there's also very different approaches in the market as to how to solve these problems and how to answer these questions. And we're going to try to understand how do each startup look at this market and what does this startup think is the most important problem to solve. Okay, so the first startup is TLDV. It's a German startup. It has kind of a clever name. It says too long didn't view, kind of a take on too long didn't read. And they think that the main problem with meetings is just that there are too many redundant meetings. You just don't need to go to them. And the main call to action of TLDV is let's have less meetings. Let's take a quick look at their website. Okay, so as you can see right at the top, let's have fewer, more focused meetings, right? They want to have less meetings. Now, I definitely get that. Now, how is it that they want to achieve that? How do they want us to have actually less meetings? So there is something kind of interesting about them. Let's also take a look at this blog post that he posted. Is saying every meeting should be optional. So if I understand them correctly, they kind of recognize the main challenge as having less meetings. And the way to have less meetings is to normalize people saying, I don't want to come to this meeting because I don't think it's required. This is a behavioral change that is not at all obvious. So it's kind of interesting because they have the same set of features as all the other startups that we're going to talk about, right? They kind of connect to your Zoom or Google Meet, they transcribe the meeting, they basically do everything that other people do, but they do it in order for people that are invited to meetings to feel comfortable saying, actually, I'm just going to watch the recording. I'm not actually going to attend this meeting. Let's talk about another startup called Relayed. It's basically a project by Typeform, which is a startup by itself that does surveys very well with a very nice user experience. Now, Relayed is trying to solve the same problem the TLDV is trying to solve. They're trying to reduce the amount of meetings that you need. So they talk about it in slightly different way. The TLDV would be very provocative. They would say, let's cancel the meetings. We don't need those meetings. So Relayed is not really using this language. They're talking more about let's move to asynchronous communication. Let's take a quick look at the website. Okay, so we're talking about supercharging communication, and this is actually pretty nice. So we're just saying we're capturing and summarizing conversations to help busy people stay up to date fast. Now, this is in some ways very much similar to what TLDV is doing, right? They want to help busy people stay up to date. They want to help them actually not attend meetings. But I think the important part here is the summarization and the fast. And the reason is that Relayed is basically saying, as long as as people won't actually watch the recordings, the meeting won't be redundant. We'll only be able to have less meetings if people are actually going to watch the video and actually get the information. Now, the reason people are not going to watch the video, because it's very easy to record a meeting and ask people to watch it, but actually nobody just has time to watch this whole recording. It takes a huge amount of time. So what they're doing and what they're focusing on, and we can see it here in their demo, is summarizing and making the video way shorter. And you can see here this button. So this is like a much easier way to go over meetings, and I think it's actually pretty clever and pretty smart. Okay, so our next startup is Firefly. Fireflies is actually not trying to solve the same problem as TLDV and Relayed. So Fireflies is not saying, hey, we have a lot of meetings, let's have less meetings. Instead, what they're saying is, you know what, meetings are actually a treasure trove of data and information that we're not using today. And we can be way more efficient if we would actually use them. So let's take a look. So they have this hero here saying conversation intelligence. And basically what they want to promote here is that there's all this data, right, about who's talking when, about the questions that are being asked. And they kind of think that this information can be really useful to kind of understand what's going on in a very quick and easy way. And as you can see, they mentioned multiple use cases for that. Okay, so TLDV and Relayed were trying to have less meetings, and Fireflies try to kind of extract information from the meeting just to give you insights that you didn't have before. And Airgram is actually doing something maybe much simpler than that. And they're basically saying meetings are inefficient just because it takes actual work to gather the information that is being relayed in the meeting. So let's take a look. Yeah, so this is Airgram website, and you can see basically what they are kind of really working on is this. It's the action items. So they're basically saying, okay, if we have a meeting now, there's all kinds of information, all kinds of decisions that are taking place within this meeting, and we just need to kind of capture them and actually make them actionable after the meeting is over. So it's kind of a simpler take, but it is kind of interesting. Okay, so we covered these 4 startups, and we can see that they're trying to solve different problems in different ways, which was kind of interesting. But actually, there's something that is very much in common to all of them as opposed to other startups, and that is that they are horizontal as opposed to vertical. And what do I mean by that is that they are trying to solve for meetings. And meetings is actually incredibly general, incredibly vague if you think of it. Whereas the vertical startups I have here, Dovetail and Gong, are trying to solve for very specific type of meetings. So Gong is mostly about sales calls. They're trying to really figure out sales call. So we saw earlier how Fireflies, for example, is trying to extract analytics and information from the meeting, but it's kind of hard to do that when it's very vague and you don't really know what meeting you're focusing on. Gong, on the other hand, is focusing specifically on sales meetings. So they know it's really important to capture the amount of time the sales rep is talking as opposed to the amount of time the prospect is talking, because they can expect that. In the same kind of way, TLDV has this feature where you can have clips, and all of them basically have that. Like you can have clips from the meeting and share this clip specifically. Dovetail is meant specifically for user interviews. So they have a very extensive systems of tagging. So you can actually find pieces of information that are related to the same tag in a very quick and easy way. The point I'm trying to get across here is that it's going to be really interesting to see as we go along in this market. Will vertical specific solutions, will companies that try to solve for a specific type of meeting would have a significant advantage and would be able to beat the ones that are just more horizontal and try to just solve for meetings in general. My personal bet would be that they have an advantage. We'll have to see how that plays out. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you learned a little about how markets are created and that you find it interesting, like I did, the different approaches that startups have. Thank you so much. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to help this channel grow. Thank you, and bye-bye.